Today I'm going to be making some cinnamon rolls. I love cinnamon rolls, and the thing of it is a recipe like this is very versatile. How you make your cinnamon rolls is your business, okay? If you want to add nuts to it, have pecan cinnamon rolls. Wonderful. I've had those. They're delicious. If you want to add raisins to it, that's a very common item. It's very commonly done up northeast especially. I see a lot of that up there. Okay, so cinnamon rolls with raisins, with pecans is very good. Today I'm going to add fruit and nuts, but they're not going to be raisins or pecans. You'll have to see in just a moment. We're going to be making a fantastic cinnamon roll. And ladies and gentlemen, what you add to it, like I said, is your business. Think of any kind of nuts you want. Think of any kind of fruit you'd like to add to that, and it can go in this recipe. But one thing that needs to be mentioned, the dough itself, this recipe that I'm providing you for the dough is your basic dough that can be used in multiple different recipes. For instance, if you want to, instead of making cinnamon rolls with this recipe, you can make coffee cake with this recipe, okay? Works really good. You can make, let's say, a challah bread with this, where you braid it, okay? You can make, believe it or not, we change out the butter for olive oil. We can make ourselves a nice Italian loaf with this. Just season it up with some herbs, yummy. Folks, this base recipe is perfect for a lot of different dishes, and I think you're going to enjoy it. Now let's get in the kitchen. Let's get busy making us some cinnamon rolls. Come on. The ingredients that we're going to be using for these wonderful cinnamon rolls today. Back here I've got some flour, milk, and I've added a little water to this also. I have some salt, sugar, yeast, and some butter that's melted. Now for the inside of my cinnamon rolls, I'm going to line it out after I rise it, and that's going to be done with some sugar, and I have some cinnamon to add to that. We're going to be softening this butter and spreading it out, and also I have back here some almonds and cranberries. Perfect items for the holiday season for a wonderful holiday cinnamon roll. Now these are optional. You can change this out to raisins, you can use pecans or walnuts or pretty much whatever suits you, or just leave them out, okay? However you want to make these, you can fill them with what you want, and that's the neat thing about cinnamon rolls. And don't worry, yes, there is a topping. We're going to put a simple icing over the top of that, a simple glaze. Now folks, when it comes time for taking these nuts and chopping them, if you don't have anything to chop nuts with, not a problem. Just put them into a plastic baggie, bang them with a skillet, and soon enough they'll be broken into the small size pieces that you need. Now folks, in order to make the dough for this recipe, you're going to have to first combine the liquid with 3 ingredients, your butter, sugar, and yeast. And I just do that in my mixing bowl. Now the salt I don't mix in immediately because salt and yeast, well, they don't get along. So you don't want too much salt all at once with the yeast. I'm sorry, I raised that other one for yeast. This is the yeast. That's the sugar. The yeast and salt, they just don't agree with each other, and salt will retard the growth of yeast. So you don't want it coming in contact with it too soon or in too great a quantity relative to the other ingredients. So what I do is I take the salt and I mix it in with the flour. I just stir it in gently, and then I spoon the flour in to this other stuff after they've been mixed in my mixing bowl. So do it in that order, and knead your bread for, a good 5 to 10 minutes at least. Now folks, when you're going to make bread, you're going to need a bowl to rise the bread in. Don't use a metal bowl because yeast reacts with metals, okay, and it doesn't get along with metal. So use a ceramic, a plastic, or a glass bowl to rise in. Make sure you oil that bowl. That's what I've got this out for. I have something else to cover it. You can use plastic wrap, or you can use something like this. If you have another bowl, just invert it, and you have a perfect setup for rising your dough. Okay, now that we have finished mixing that dough, simply place it right down in the bowl. And I want to say this, having a spatula makes handling this a lot easier because it is somewhat sticky, as it should be. Well, we have the bread rising right now, and that's going to take whatever amount of time it takes. Depends on whether you used fast rising yeast or just regular yeast. Regular yeast will take twice as long. So it could be anywhere from an hour, it could be 2 or even 3 hours. Just let it rise until it doubles in bulk, okay? Once it doubles in bulk, we're going to punch it down. We're going to roll it out after we cut it in half, and we're going to get busy making. So it's just a matter of waiting, give it time and relax, and well, there's not much to do other than wait. Wait. Folks, look at that dough. It has risen up beautiful, and this is enough dough to make a lot of cinnamon buns. Way more than we're making today. But remember, I am shooting 2 shows here. This is a show on white bread as well as cinnamon buns. So let's take this wonderful dough and get it ready to make these wonderful little treats. Now folks, if you're going to make cinnamon buns, sometimes you have a pan like this that doesn't have a nonstick coating. Or even if it does, sometimes they don't work that well. Go ahead and use some butter or lard or some shortening and rub it over the inside of the pan. This is called greasing and flouring your pan. Add a little flour to it, dust it around, knock out the excess. That way your pan won't stick and the cinnamon buns are going to come out beautiful. Nothing like getting to punch down the dough. There you go. Hey, it's just tradition, okay? Go ahead and enjoy doing that, and then what we want to do is take our dough. I'm going to place it here on this board, flour it up here, and I'm going to divide it out. And that's what these things are for. This is actually a pastry knife is what that is, and it is kind of dull on the end, but it's designed to work with dough. Now I'm trying to form kind of a sort of an oblong shape so that I can judge about what half would be, and it doesn't have to be perfect. All right, so half and half. We're going to have a little fun here, and that's the most important thing. When you're baking, when you're in the kitchen, when you're doing stuff like this, for heaven's sakes, just have a little fun with it. Don't get too serious about it, and take the time to enjoy what you're doing, okay? Now, what am I trying to do? I'm just trying to roll this out in such a way that I have a flat sheet that has some sort of a workable shape. I guess is the best way to say it. Now I've got this wonky shape. What am I going to do with this strange shape? Will it work? You know what? I bet it will. Alright, so what I have here is a dough that's anything but perfect, but it's going to work for what we're going to do. Get that loose there. Work this around here. There we go. Next step, we need to get our butter on here. Now folks, we have our dough rolled out and ready to go here. And I have my butter. It's all softened up. It's ready to go on there. I'm going to spread it out. And once I get that spread across here, I will mix my sugar and cinnamon together, sprinkle those over the top evenly. And if you want just plain cinnamon rolls, that's where you stop. You roll it up and cut it up. However, if you're wanting, well, something a little different, let's say you want some fruit or nuts in there, go ahead and put those on top after the cinnamon and sugar, and then roll it up and cut it. Either way, you got delicious right here, so get at it. It's time, now that we have the butter on here, to get our cinnamon and sugar mixed together, and once they're mixed, just gently sprinkle them across the surface, and you're ready for your next step. Now that I have my cinnamon and sugar and butter all on there, it's time for these toppings. Distribute them evenly, roll this into a log, and then use your knife to cut it into your cinnamon rolls. My cinnamon buns are now in the pan, and I've got a little plastic wrap over the top. I'm going to not keep it tight, I want it loose so that these can rise up easily without resistance. So if they push up a little bit, it's not a problem. I'm wanting them to push out a little bit to kind of do what the yeast does, and that's just a matter of giving it a little time. And once they have filled up a little bit, it takes about 45 minutes, I'll bake it up at 375 degrees. Folks, look at that. They have been in there, they've risen up, They're kind of pushed up against each other now and against the side of the pan, and they're about ready to hit the oven. That's going to be 375 degrees, and that's going to take about 25 minutes, roughly. You're going to have to watch it. When it's golden brown, you know it's ready, okay? It's time for us to get this into the oven and do some baking. Oh, I like days like this. There we go. Now it's just a matter of time. Now folks, the quantities on what I have used today, let's start down here with the butter. That was 3 tablespoons of butter that was melted. 4½ teaspoons of yeast, or 2 packs if you're using the tear open dry packages. 2 teaspoons of salt, 3 tablespoons of sugar, 5 cups of flour. Make sure you sift that flour, okay? And I have 1½ cups of milk mixed with 1/2 cup of water to give me a total volume of 2 cups of liquid. Now on these ingredients, I used 1/2 cup of the cranberries, 1/2 cup of my nuts, those are almonds. I used 3/4 cup of granulated sugar, 1½ teaspoon of cinnamon, and 4 tablespoons of butter softened to room temperature. There's your recipe, and it's a good one. Now let's take a look at these delicious cinnamon rolls. Now folks, I have a few other items set aside here and ready. This, which kind of looks like flour, is actually confectioner's sugar. That's powdered sugar. All right, now this is some milk. I've got 1/4 cup of milk here, 2 cups of sugar here. That's the confectioner's sugar, not granulated. And then right here, I've got some extract. For this, I'm going to be using an almond extract, okay? Really, really cool, and it's going to work perfect with those cinnamon buns. Now, the neat thing about this is you can make this any flavor you want. You can put rum extract, or just use regular rum if you want. You can use vanilla. You could use peppermint. You can use anything you like. This time I'm going with almond. Now, here's the next thing. As I mentioned, these could be good for the holidays, so you can add a little food coloring and turn this red, green, or split the batch into 2 batches, do red and green, and drizzle it across the top of those cinnamon buns. What a neat thing to do. That, ladies and gentlemen, that's what they're supposed to look like when you pull them from the oven. Absolutely gorgeous. A nice brown on top. Now I'm going to let them cool a little bit and put the glaze over that. Folks, once you get your glaze made, go ahead and just gently drizzle it over the top of your wonderful cinnamon buns, and then they are ready to serve. I like to serve these just slightly warm but not piping hot. The sugars inside will burn people if it's too hot, so let it cool plenty so that you can actually touch the pan. If you can't touch the pan, it's still a bit too hot. Okay, now I'll put it on this sheet so that if I drizzle over the edges, it won't mess up my board. I've been sitting here enjoying these fantastic cinnamon buns. They're worth the time, let me tell you. The cranberries give you this little tart punch. Wonderful. The nuts, fantastic. The glaze matches the flavor of the nuts. It's almond. It works all together. And a perfect item for your holiday season. Enjoy these. Folks, thank you for watching. Look down below in my descriptions. You're going to see some links there, okay? That to my other channel on YouTube, also to my website, S.A.Trotter.com. Texas Cooking Today is a project of S.A.Trotter Arts. That's me, that's my company. So thank you very much for watching this. Please take a look at my website, and folks, enjoy this recipe. It's worth your trouble. It's mostly just a bunch of waiting.